Are you late to class all the time? Are red lights stopping you from turning in your late work and you simply don't have any restroom passes to spare? Well, we've got you covered with Savannah's Insurance.
Okay, in this problem, it tells us given x plus 6 is a factor. It's a clue. It's the truth. Then given this polynomial x cubed plus 6x squared plus 4x plus 24, how do I factor that? How do I break it up into their binomials? And then how can I solve this? And then how can we use that sentence that the degree is equal to the real plus the imaginaries? Well, last week we learned about the remainder theorem. The remainder theorem, if I put in x equals -6 in here, that'll give me just the remainder. Another way to find the remainder, you can use that synthetic division. Let's go ahead and do synthetic division. Class, tell me the coefficients. There are no gaps. You'll notice that it's in descending order. 3, 2, 1, x to the 0 power. Class, should I put positive 6 right here? No, you have to set it equal to 0. We talked about triplets last week. X plus 6 is the same thing as x equals -6. You just subtract 6 from both sides and get x equals -6, or determine that -6 plus 6 equals -6. Let's pretend you've never learned synthetic division before. First thing you're going to have to do is drop down the 1. What do you do with these two numbers? Multiply. -6 times 1 gives you -6. And then what do you do with these two? You add down, which gives you 0. Go ahead and multiply. Then you multiply. Add down. Yes? And it's 0. We're okay? Okay. Now, put your finger on the remainder. Now, that means the rest of this, essentially this is 0 over x plus 6. The 4 is the constant. You're going to add an x and add another x, so that'll be 1x squared. Okay? So let's review what we got so far. We know that x plus 6 is a factor. I'm going to write that here. X plus 6. My answer is x squared plus 0x plus 4. Eventually I'm going to factor it again to get my binomials. So let's just write x squared plus 4 here. Okay, take 20 seconds, clarify any questions your partner has so far. Okay, pay attention. Let's see if we can factor this. Okay, so one way is, we call it factoring. Well, normally we would use our x puzzle. A times c is, b value is 0. With your partner, see if you can come up with two numbers that multiply to be 4 and add to be 0. Class, does 2 and -2 work? They multiply to be -4, but they do add to be 0. How about -2 and -2? Multiplies to be positive, but adds to be negative. So these two have to become what? Yeah. Positive 2i and negative 2i. How does 2i times negative 2i equal 4? that becomes negative 4i squared. I squared is equal to negative 1, and negative times a negative is positive. Okay? So, one way that I get my answers for the pink is x plus 2i and x minus 2i. Okay? I'm going to show you a second way, and then you tell your partner which one makes more sense to you. So that was just factoring using the x method. I didn't use the box because a is important. The second way you can solve this is by using the square root method. The square root method. So the goal is eventually to solve this. X equals, like this. Okay, so how do you do that with the square root method? Well, I'm going to set it equal to 0. I'm going to move the constant, so I'm going to subtract 4 and get x squared equals negative 4. Class, how do you get rid of the power of 2? Okay, we have to tread lightly. This is where students get lost. Remember, if the degree is 2, that's telling us there has to be 2 solutions here. And this is how you note 2 solutions. When you take the square root of an equation, there's going to be a positive solution and a negative solution. The square root of negative 4 is the square root of 4 times the square root of negative 1. Class, the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of negative 1 is I. Okay? So there are 2 ways that you can get this answer. You can factor, or you can use the square root method. I'll give you a chance to talk to your partner about which one makes more sense to you, but let me finish up the problem. So, my 3 solutions are x equals negative 6, x equals 2i, and x equals negative 2i. Class, how many of these are real? 1. How many are imaginary, has i's in it? 2. So, our degree of our polynomial, 3, is equal to 1 plus 2 imaginaries.
That's all for today, Rebels. Have a mathematical Monday.